Hey, Shalom, Mesha. I want to start off as always by giving no praise to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahshua, Hashem, Kodash, that belongs to the apostles of GMS and honors you brothers doing the work, truth and sincerity. This is a real quick one. Basically, on the news came out like a day or two ago. I say June 28th. I don't know, this is yesterday. So yeah, June 28th or 27th. Basically, they found traces of the coronavirus in Spain's wastewater going back to March 2019, right? So all I'll do is I'll read through it real quick, and I'll say while I'm just reading through it. And I'll point out the bit. It says the novel coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 may have been in Europe for longer than previously thought. Recent studies have suggested that it was circulating in Italy as early as December 2019. Right, notice that 2019. More surprisingly, researchers at the University of Barcelona found traces of the virus when testing untreated wastewater samples dated March 12th, 2019. The study was recently published on a preprint server, medRxiv. Med 14 probably, I don't know. So the paper is currently being subject to critical review by outside experts in preparation for publication in a scientific journal. Right, so basically, whenever ESA wants to publish a scientific study, you have the researchers who do the research, and then it goes through a process called peer reviewing. Now, these peer reviews, just because people are, oh, but it wasn't peer review, doesn't actually, because you watch certain documentaries. For instance, one that I've been watching, for instance, is Babies on Netflix, right? Where basically, you hear stories of these guys like, look, I had like evidence that this is facts, right? But then what would they say? But the guys were so stuck in their old ways. So you have one guy that he wants to believe something else, and then one quote expert, he wants to believe one other thing, that he is dismissing the evidence that is presented before him, right? So hey, that's a note on that. It says until this process of peer review has been completed, though, the evidence needs to be treated with caution, right? So that's the reason why I say, I'm not going to speak too much, and I'm just more reporting on the news, right? It says, so how was the experiment conducted and what exactly did the scientists find? Right, and this is an important bit because if and this is why one of the things that we're taught, is to really be critical thinkers, right? Whenever we're presented with information, it's like actually dig into that information. Example being the numbers on Sweden. Right now, I've not looked at them since like, end of May or whatever. But for instance, they say, oh, Sweden's got a high, death per, per capita rate. But then when you actually look into the numbers, right, the large majority of the people that have died in Sweden have been in care homes, i.e., people who wouldn't have been affected by a lockdown, right? And in fact, Imperial said that by June, right, over 100,000 people will have died in Sweden because of coronavirus. Imperial University in England said that, and yeah, it's been like, I think it's maybe like 4 or 5 thousand now, so they were way off, right? But this is why you always have to look into this, whatever this man says, right? Because in fact, that actually allowed me to get some more precepts. Like I said, I was just gonna make this quick. This is Job 14 and 5, right? It says, nope, where is it? Okay, I've completely forgotten where that is. It's Job 13 and 4, Salakia. Right, it says, but ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. Right, so Esau, you're a liar. Right, and then also got Psalm 58 and 3 here somewhere, right, which says the wicked are strained from the womb, they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Right, and also let me grab this as well. This is John 8:44, right, which says, to the context behind this is Yahushua basically speaking to Israel, right? Basically, basically saying you had to like Edomites, basically, right? It says, you owe your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, right? So this is how we know he's talking about Esau, and basically that spirit of Esau, right? He was the murderer from the beginning, that's Cain, Right, it says, "And abode not in truth, because there is no truth in him." Right, when he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Right, it's just talking about Esau, right, the so-called white man. That's the, that's his spirit, to be a liar, right? So we carry on here. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I said, but the fact that these bits of corona, so I'll basically going into the fact that you always got to look into, whenever Esau is presenting you bits of information, you've always got to look into it, and if you've got the time, look into the raw data, if it's at all possible. But this is an important bit of information here, right, to actually understand what the what, because these scoffers will try, come at you at all, different types of angles. Well, how was it performed? How was the experiment? Oh, da 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 da, oh, da 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 da. Right. This is Second Peter's 3:3. Right. And it says, "Knowing this first, that they shall come in the last days, scoffers walking after their own lusts." Right. And most of these people out here, man, they just scoffers, man. Right. In fact, let me grab this as well. Second Ezra's 13:23. Right, it says, he that shall, no, Sirach 13:23. This is Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus 13:23. This is when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he saith. They extol it to the clouds. But if the poor man speak, they say, what fellow is this? And if he stumble, they'll help to overthrow it. Right. So, hey, right now we're referred to as the poor man, right? I know these guys only really look at people in certain positions, will only really consider what someone in a certain position is saying. Right, and that last bit there, in brothers, you've all experienced. If he stumbled, they will help to overthrow him. So, for instance, if you was to recount this story, and instead of RNA, you said DNA by accident, they'll be like, "Oh, you see, you don't know what you're talking about," right? Why? Because everyone's a scoffer, man. Right. So, where was I? I was around here. Right, so how was it's right here actually. So how was the experiment conducted, and what exactly did the scientists find? One of the early findings about SARS-CoV-2 is that it is found in the feces of infected people as the virus makes its way through the gut, where it can cause gastrointestinal symptoms. It loses its outer protein layer, but bits of genetic material called RNA survive the journey intact and are shed in feces. At this point, it is no longer infectious, as far as current evidence tells us. Right, but the fact that these bits of coronavirus RNA can be found in untreated wastewater, known as influent, is useful for tracking outbreaks. Indeed, they can predict where an outbreak is likely to occur a week to 10 days before they show up in official figures. The reason being that people shed coronavirus before symptoms become evident. These pre-symptomatic people then have to get sick enough to be tested. They have to get sick enough to be that ones you have to put yourself on repeat, right? So get the results and be admitted to a hospital as an official case, hence the week or so lag. As a result, many countries, including Spain, are now monitoring wastewater for traces of coronavirus. In this particular study, the wastewater epidemiologists were examining frozen samples of influent between January 2018 and December 2019, right, to see when the virus made its debut in the city. They found evidence of the virus on January 15th, 2020, 41 days before the first official case. Read that again, 41 days before the first official case, man, right? So that means it would have been out there in the wild 41 days. So then why is it all of these peaks happening all at these random different times, right, when it's been there for a long time before? They're basically saying it's quite an infectious, disease. You need to be wearing a mask, because if you don't wear a mask, everyone is gonna be infected. So okay, cool. If that's the case, then why isn't Spain's what's the word? Why don't their cases start 41 days before, right? Rather their count, because they count from the 15th case or what, something like that. Right, 15th official cases, and there seems to be a correlation on the 15th official case going onwards. But if the first evidence is 41 days before the first confirmed case, So why don't those numbers go up way before that? Right, which is why, like, you've been seeing it as I've been getting these other precepts. 2 Corinthians 2:11 says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." Right? We're not ignorant. We know ultimately, whatever they end up saying from this, right? That this is a there's more that meets the eye with this particular event, right? Esau's planning his end game, man. This is Edom end game, man, right? It says 41 days before the first official case was declared on February the 25th, 2020. It says all samples before this date were negative except for a sample before from March 12th, 2019, which gave a positive result in their PCR test for coronavirus. PCR is a standard way of testing to see if someone currently has the disease. PCR involves getting a sample of saliva, mucus, frozen wastewater, or whatever else the virus is thought to be lurking in, clearing all the unnecessary stuff out of the sample, then converting the RNA, which is a single strand of genetic material, into DNA, the famous double-stranded helix. Right, the DNA is then amplified in successive cycles until key bits of genetic information that are known to only exist in the particular virus are plentiful enough to be detected with a fluorescent probe. Right, Salah is actually only a little bit more. So not highly specific in coronavirus testing. Scientists typically screen for more than one gene. In this case, the researchers tested for three. They had a positive result for the March 2019 sample, and one of the three genes, the RDRP gene, they screened for two regions of this gene, and both were only detected around the 39th cycle of amplification. PCR tests become less specific with increasing rounds of amplification. Scientists generally use 40 to 45 rounds. Right, says there are several explanations for this positive results, and like I said, it's a pretty subjective article, right? And they're basically saying, as for truth purposes, is one is that maybe the it says that one is that SARS-CoV-2 is present in the sewage at a very low level. Another is that a test reaction was accidentally contaminated with the corona in the labs. Basically saying it could actually just be a missampling, right? Which is why I was basically saying, look, regardless of what they actually have say, we know the truth, and the truth is that there is more than meets the eye, right? So this sometimes happens in labs as positive samples are regularly being handled, and it can be difficult to prevent very small traces of positive samples contaminating others. Another explanation is that there is other RNA, DNA in the sample that resembles the test target site enough for it to give a positive result at the 39th cycle of amplification. Further tests need to be carried out to conclude that the sample contains SARS-CoV-2, and the finding of that magnitude would need to be replicated separately by independent labs. There's a reason to be circumspect, right? And in fact, the scriptures tell us to be circumspect, right? Let me see if I can find that real quick. So it's ended up being a lot longer than I expected it to be. It says Ephesians 5:15. It says, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." Right? Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. Right? And we understand that this really is the will of the Lord. Right? We know that the Lord is starting to shut up shop on this man's kingdom, man, right? Which is what's pushing him to basically use this nothing burger for this purpose, right? So I'll read Matthew 24:6 onwards. As then you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Right, so the beginning of the year, America killed General Soleimani of Iran, which they basically made an Interpol request for him, requesting his death. Which requesting Trump. Basically made a arrest warrant for Trump, man. Them Iranians, funny guys. It says, but the end is not yet, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, which a famine is brewing at the moment, right? And pestilence, and this is an example of a pestilence, whether it's real or imagined. It's an example of a pestilence, and these elites have basically taken this and they've run with it, right? It says, and earthquakes in diverse places, and you've been seeing that also. And he says all these are the beginning of sorrow. So we know that this is just the beginning. Things are going to get progressively worse. Right? Nothing really has happened just yet. Right. So there's reasons to be circumspect. The curious thing about this finding is that it disagrees with epidemiological data about the virus. Right. The authors don't cite reports of a spike in the number of respiratory disease cases in the local population following the date of the sampling. Right. Also, we know SARS-CoV-2 to be highly transmissible, at least in its current form. If this result is a true positive, it suggests that the virus was present in the population at a high enough incidence to be detected in an 800 milliliter sample of sewage, but then not present at a high enough incidence to be detected for 9 months when no control measures were in place. So until further studies are carried out, it's best not to draw definitive conclusions, right? Just basically, she's just there, being balanced, with this particular finding. Yeah, because it's from the conversational comment, more or less. No, I didn't realize it was as long as it was. But like you saying, you had this same thing also in America where one of the states where they basically found that someone had died from it before the first official death was recorded. That was a while back. They released that one. You also saw the bit about Italy where they said it was in December. They found it in wastewater in December 2019, right? So like I was going into, man, we know there's more happening than than is brought to our attention, right? Even if this is a natural thing, right? We've got to we've just got to watch and pray and hope that this is the end of this man's kingdom. He's done a lot, with this particular thing, man. He has completely brought this world to a grinding halt and started preparing, this place for the mark of the beast, which is that RFID microchip. So as always, Lord's all that was edifying. To the next time. Shalom.